Tonight on the fifth chapter, same old Lions, brand new GM as Chris Spielman picks Brad Holmes of the Rams to run the organization. Will Holmes lead the Lions to a playoff win or more SOL failures? Stevie Y passes the torch. Dylan Larkin is the new captain of the Detroit Red Wings, but is he worthy of the honor, and is the team worthy of a captain? And the Brooklyn Nets acquired James Harden in a blockbuster trade. Are the Nets now the favorites in the East, and are they easy to love or easy to hate? Join the conversation by commenting live on YouTube, Facebook Live, and Twitch. This is the fifth chapter with Dennis Fithian and Brian Chapman. He represents the mitten by way of Penn State. When Chapman gets to talking sports, the people can't wait. He represents the mitten. Be a true EMU, but cut Dennis in the fall, and his veins bleeding blue. They got respect around the state. When that light turns red, so don't sleep on these dudes. Just invite your friends to cut your nap short and tip your cap for and sit back for the fifth chapter. Brian Chapman, Dennis Fithian. When they open their mouths, they spitting the facts, bro. This ain't even optional, man. You just have to tune into YouTube to watch the broadcast or download it to your phone to peep the podcast. They mix laughter, they get after. It's all captured in the fifth chapter. That's right. Welcome to the fifth chapter. I am Brian Chapman. He is Dennis Fithian. We're ready for episode number 70. And Dennis, it's time to root against Urban Meyer again. Are you ready to do so?
I never stopped.
There you go. Yeah, it sucks because I liked rooting for Trevor Lawrence. I rooted for him in his last game against Ohio State. And now it looks like Trevor Lawrence is going to be playing for the ex-Ohio State coach with the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah, I hate saying this, but it's true. I didn't mind him as a broadcaster doing college football.
Yeah, he was pretty good. Every once in a while, meaning every show, he would take a dig at Michigan, which, I mean, as a Buckeye, you would figure he would do. But he was very good on FS1 at breaking down games, so they'll have to fill that void. But I'm sure that Jacksonville, as long as Urban Meyer doesn't have those head problems or some other health issue, they
or
could.
He's losing.
Yeah, well, and it was interesting because they showed on SportsCenter the stats of the Jacksonville Jaguars win-loss record versus Urban Meyer in his whole career. And I think in Urban Meyer's career, he's lost 36 games. And in the last 3 years, the Jaguars have lost 34 games. So if losing causes him to go and grab his head, then he could be doing a lot of that, particularly in his first year with the Jags.
All I can say is I've never been a Jaguar fan, and I'm not starting now.
Yeah, that's for certain. Definitely want to thank everybody out there for tuning into episode 70. We've got 5 more fantastic chapters. Thanks everyone watching on YouTube, Facebook Live, and Twitch, and to those who are listening via the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. Make sure that you like, subscribe, and participate in each show by sending in your feedback via Facebook Live and via YouTube. Let's take a look at today's book. And as you can see in the second chapter, Steve Yzerman names Dylan Larkin as the team captain. Of course, today is the first day of the Red Wing season. Was it a good move or a bad move for the NHL's worst team? In the third chapter, court documents show that Justin Verlander may have cheated with a pine tar mixture. How big of a deal is that for the former Tiger? In the fourth chapter, James Harden, the disgruntled Houston Rocket, is finally traded to the Nets. Is everyone going to become a Nets fan or a Nets hater now that they have a big three with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant? And then in the fifth chapter, it's the major wager. We will be taking a look at the divisional round games in the NFL. But Dennis, let's start off with the first chapter, and that takes us to the same old Lions who have a brand new general manager. It's Brad Holmes. He is the former director of college scouting with the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams, of course, are continuing on in the playoffs this weekend against the Green Bay Packers, but obviously Holmes doesn't have any more duties with them because he's not a part of the coaching staff or anything like that. So he is gone. He is now a member of the Detroit Lions. He's not a former general manager. He's not a former assistant general manager, so he wasn't number 2 or the number 1 making all the calls for all personnel when it comes to acquiring NFL talent or acquiring college talent, but he did have a key leading role in acquiring guys like Aaron Donald, who slipped all the way down to number 13. I don't know if you remember this, but the Lions had a chance to draft Donald, but they took slippery finger tight end Eric Ebron. Another thing that's one of his highlights is that the last 4 years, the Rams have not had a first round pick, and they're still in a position where they made the playoffs and won a playoff game this year. That said, when you look at his experience, not only was he not the number one or the number two, according to Carlos Monarrez of the Detroit Free Press, he was 5 spots below the general manager of the Los Angeles Rams. So, Dennis, when you look at this overall, when you look at Chris Spielman's first major decision to hire Brad Holmes as the new general manager of the same old Lions, do you love it or do you hate it?
Well, I wouldn't classify it in either of those.
Okay.
So if I had to, I would say I love it. I mean, the guy is going to have a chance here. It is quite an undertaking as a 41-year-old executive, knowing Detroit Lions history. He's coming in and he's charged with the most difficult job of any executive, and that's turning around this doormat of a franchise. So that's going to be really tough for him. There's a part I like, if you go out there, like when Sean McVay was hired with the Rams, this is on the coaching side, everybody was like, man, this guy's he's still a couple years away. I mean, what are you doing tabbing him? Well, it was a fantastic hire. If you can hire a guy on an upward trajectory, that's the man. That's what you really want. Now, he's going to look around. Owner's relatively new. He's never done this. Spielman, admittedly, said he hasn't done it. The president's an accountant. We know how green he is. Oh, yeah. Who else am I forgetting?
Rod Wood is the most experienced person in the front office.
Yeah, so, they're going to have to lean. Spielman knows a little bit more than, he was giving himself credit for. And, this seems to point to hiring a head coach that's been there and done that before, not picking somebody with absolutely no experience. But, it's going to come down to, if he hires. I just hope he doesn't. To me, I hope he doesn't hire Darrell Bevell. About all the other candidates, we've seen there, I'm all right with. There's 3 things that I'm stuck on with Darrell Bevell that, like, if he did hire him, and then next year the Lions were in a big spot late in the game and they did something stupid, and you'd say, well, it's Darrell Bevell's first time. He'd say, no, he's had a repeated pattern of history of making decisions where you'd say that, he's a choker late in games. So I would say, for me, that's it. The first hoop that he's got to get through, the first barrier for me to say, all right, let's just see before he gets to his news conference and sets the tone and everything else. I got to see that he doesn't hire Darrell Bevell.
Yeah, I'm with you when it comes to the hiring of Brad Holmes. Like, I can't sit here and drool over the guy because, for me, it's SOL until proven otherwise, no matter what. And you knew the pool of candidates that they were going to go after. It was either going to be a former GM, an assistant general manager, or some lead scout. Now, in terms of being 5 slots below the general manager, that does seem a little bit low. He's not like the director of all scouting or something like that. He's the director of college scouting, and 5 spots below seems like it's pretty low. I think Bob Quinn was only 2 spots below Bill Belichick in the hierarchy with the Patriots. Now, obviously, that didn't pan out very well. The only other option they would have would be going the TV route with a guy like Louis Riddick. And for a team like the Raiders, it's had okay success. For a team like the same old Lions, when they hired Matt Millen, that had no success. So they hired somebody out of the pool you would expect them to hire. He's never run a team before. He's never been a GM or an assistant GM. I don't think that's a bad thing, because if you hire a former general manager, then you have to wonder, why is he out on the open market? If it's because you offered more money, like the report saying that they were going after the Steelers GM or the Pittsburgh
Seahawks.
the Seahawks GM, then you'd say, all right, great. Martha Ford is sparing no expense, and obviously that former GM had some issues there. But most of the time, if you hire a former GM, it's because that general manager got fired. And I like guys who haven't been fired before. I look at his resume, and you're obviously going to see some positive things on the resume, or else you're not going to hire him. getting Aaron Donald, arguably the best football player in the NFL, at the 13th pick was a nice decision. Jared Goff with a top 5 pick, it just seems like an okay pick, maybe turning him downward. You look at Cooper Kupp, that's a nice pick at wide receiver. Robert Woods, a starting wide receiver at that spot. I think perhaps the most impressive part is that they were able to trade away all those first-round picks. Obviously, they were able to get Jalen Ramsey out of it, and they're still a playoff team or a playoff contender year in and year out. Just 2 years ago, they were in the Super Bowl without having a first-round pick. So, it's on paper, it looks like, one of those moves where you just kind of shrug, because there are some positives when you look at his experience of not having the first round picks, but there are some negatives because you say, like, wow, he was so far down the depth chart, and I don't even think he had an office in LA.
No.
He worked out of Atlanta, which shows that he was doing a lot of hard work on the road all the time. But there's a lot more that goes into building a franchise than just drafting players in the later rounds.
Yeah, the analytics was thrown out there. Big into that. That's good. And his input on Aaron Donald and Goff and what was going on there when they ended up making those deals. The one thing, like anybody that's sitting here, I can't tell you. I mean, I look at all the things that he's done, look at what, the Rams' success has been and his part in there. Make a great point about not having any experience, but it's also that, it cuts both ways, man. You get that guy when they're young. That Schneider from the Seahawks, he didn't have any previous experience, and he took off, and he's one of the, the most respected guys in all the NFL. So if you can get him young, you give him a chance and see how he does here. Again, it's a monumental task. The one part about it saying, it's a great hire, or, I hate the hire. I understand if you're a Lions fan and it's SOL and, until, like you said, until they win a playoff game, that's understandable. The thing is, like, if I was sitting in those meeting rooms and I was able to listen to how he presented his plan there for the, I don't know, like the 10 GMs that they did talk to or whatever else, I'd probably have a different opinion, about, all of them. And then, of course, I would something would emerge as my favorite. There is the part, like, the Lions have, if they've said one thing about this, culture is really big to them. And changing the culture. And the one thing about the Lions is we know that it's been homerism, cronyism, being a brown noser, and it's just it's one of those things that hopefully it's been around for so long. But it started with Sheila Ford's Hamp's father, and then her mother. They kind of went down the same road. So if she's really ready to break free from this, like, hey, let's brown nose as much as we can. That's one of the things when I see Holmes come out there and set the tone in his news conference. No sucking up to the Fords. Yeah, we understand that that's your boss and everything else. Mm-hmm. You don't need to blow Rod Wood. You don't need to do any of those things. I would hope that's my hope, that we're just going to have a straightforward, like, look, I'm in charge. I'm looking forward to this. Yeah, thanks. This is Hamp. Let's go. Let's get to work. The other thing, Bob Quinn shot himself in the foot right off the bat. He got out there and it's, talked about character. I'm really going to be involved in, we're going to have good character. And that was totally to appease, the Fords. That's big for them, So he took that talking point, ran it out there. And then one of his first moves, the two guys that he brought in towards the end of the roster had gun charges on them. And it's like, yeah. Okay, what about all this zero tolerance? He stuck his foot in his mouth right away. Let's hope that he can just get through an introductory news conference. And hopefully, unlike Bob Quinn, he doesn't have to come out there and be a chatterbox and everything else. And you realize that a lot of these guys, they can't say anything really about actually what they're going to do or who they're interested in. And, he should take some time to explore some, he comes up there, yeah, Stafford's out of here. I'm willing to make any picks, all those kind of things like might excite people, or it certainly would be a live wire. He could be measured and all that, but I would hope that he would be a little bit more forthcoming than Bob Quinn, who only talked when he had the NFL's policy where he had to gun right to his head. Yeah. Other than that, he just had his baseball bat,
Oh,
and
for
acted
for
like he was the
fans,
smartest guy in the room.
yeah, for fans, that's what you want. You want more access. I know a lot of fans out there say, "Well, I don't care what the coach says. I don't care what the GM or the players or the owner says. I just want them to win." And that is important, but you also want them to be accountable. You want them to speak. You want it to be more than just right after the draft when the general manager is going to say, "Oh yeah, we had him number 1 on our board all along." Right after a big free agent acquisition or right after the season ends. You want them to be. I mean, like I think it's great for Cowboys fans. Obviously, they wish they had a better team, but I think it's great for Cowboys fans. They have Jerry Jones, the owner and general manager of the team, having his own radio show and calling into his own radio show every single week, so you know exactly what he's thinking all the time. Is Brad Holmes going to be like that? I don't know, but I think that if he were more accessible than just 2 or 3 times a year, Lions fans would appreciate that. Certainly, if he's winning, they'll appreciate it more. But I think a lot of folks want to understand what's going on with their favorite football team, whether they're struggling or whether they're successful. And a lot of them are going to want to know over the next couple of months what's going on with Matthew Stafford. Because after the head coaching decision is made by Spielman and Holmes, the next big decision is going to be about what to do at the quarterback position, whether that is to keep Stafford, whether it's to trade for a quarterback like Wentz or Watson or maybe somebody else, or whether it's to draft a quarterback. And if they're drafting a quarterback, is he going to be trading up 3 or 4 spots to get Justin Fields? Is it going to be to stand pat to take whoever is there? Is it going to be to draft a quarterback later in the draft in the 2nd or 3rd round so that Stafford can groom that individual for a year or two? I think all of those, that's the number 2 decision on Brad Holmes' plate. Number 1, head coaching candidate, and number 2, what are you doing with the quarterback situation?
That's right, and I think it would be semi-shocking if he was able to land one of the 2 biggest guys that were out there. One would be the offensive coordinator for the Chiefs, Eric Bieniemy, who's keeping really quiet about what he wants to do. And of course, Robert Saleh right now that Urban Meyer's off the board. If he was able to pull either of those guys in, that would seem like, hey, the Lions have been able to reach over to where you expected that they would be able to get somebody. And not that would be all him, but you know what? If one of these coaches wants to work with Brad Holmes and identifies him as like, hey, I like this and I like the situation in Detroit, to me, that would be a nice early win for him as well.
Well, that's kind of where you might wonder if the inexperience, if the really the lack of experience evaluating football or pro football players and the lack of ability to, or the lack of experience making decisions even as an assistant general manager on acquiring or getting rid of pro football players might work to his disadvantage. Because if you're a first-time head coach like a Saleh, like a Bieniemy, like a Smith or some of those other guys, you might say, wait a second, I'm going to go to a bad franchise with a guy who only knows about college players. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And then, you might say, well, because to compensate for that, the Lions might go with a trusty old veteran like 0-7 in the playoffs, Marvin Lewis, who would be a gigantic disappointment, at least at the press conference when Lions fans find out they're hiring another winless playoff coach.
Yeah, you look at San Francisco, they had Lynch, who came from the broadcast booth, and then Shanahan. Neither of those guys had any prior experience as being a head coach or a general manager. And I know I just said he would probably, it seems to make sense that he would look for somebody that's been a head coach before. But if you can reach up and get a guy that's coveted by those top teams, I said as long as he...
But my point was not just that he didn't have experience as a general manager, but it's also not an assistant manager, being 5 spots below the general manager. Basically, it seems as if his impact on the organization was on 3 days, the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd day of the draft. And then after that, it was all back to scouting when it came to, who to cut during the preseason, when it came to who to sign. He wasn't a part of all that. And if you're a first-time head coach, you might be a little bit wary of that kind of inexperience leading your organization when it comes to filling out roster spots to help you out. You want more than just overachieving 4th-round picks.
Good point. When you mentioned Arthur Smith, the offensive coordinator for the Titans, I would put him right behind Darrell Bevell on the. I hope that he doesn't reach out and grab either of these guys. Bevell the Super Bowl, the tie against Arizona, and the most ridiculous call of all time, that 4th and 1 against the Raiders. You know, ridiculous. Stay away from him. And then Arthur Smith this last week with the Titans, with, you know, he's got Derrick Henry. I'm not going to take it away from him that, you know, he's got a great player, and so he's been able to have this offense. But, you know, the going over the 50-yard line and at 4th and 2 and not punting and the whole thing when it wasn't working with Derrick Henry, he couldn't break out and do something else. I know it might be recency bias, but man, I just hope it's my gut here for sure on Bevel, but I don't want Arthur Smith either.
I think that Arthur Smith should be one of the top candidates for the Lions. My number one choice is going to be Eric Bieniemy because of what he's done with the Chiefs. But the Tennessee Titans, yeah, they didn't have a good game against the Baltimore Ravens. They got off to a 10-0 start, and they were pretty much shut out for the rest of the game. And you mentioned some of the decision-making, how you have a 2,000-yard running back who was a non-factor in a playoff game is disappointing. But they were the 4th highest scoring team in the regular season this year, 491 points. They were only 18 points behind the Green Bay Packers for number 1 overall. I like that. You also look at the most important position on the field, and that's the quarterback. Ryan Tannehill is not making a heck of a lot of money. Ryan Tannehill is not a Pro Bowler, but he's gotten that quarterback, who was a reclamation project from the Miami Dolphins, into a good, solid quarterback who led the Titans to the 4th highest scoring offense in the NFL. You bring that kind of mind to the Detroit Lions, and I would take that. Obviously, they don't have a big bruising running back like Derrick Henry because only one team has that. And when you look at the first year of DeAndre Swift, the third year of Kerryon Johnson, you don't see any potential for either one of those two to become like that. But I just look at 4th highest scoring offense, higher scoring offense than the Chiefs, than the Saints. And I'm not going to just completely discount him. He would be one of my top choices.
Well, not a bad point, especially what he did with Ryan Tannehill. Maybe he thinks he can pop the hood on Stafford and get the best out of him. You better be careful what you wish for. Mm-hmm. All right, let's get to the feedback, and we see that is coming in here on the live chat. If you're just tuning in, like, what do you mean? I can join the show? Exactly. You're on YouTube. You see the live chat. Type away. We read the comments here right over the air, and also on Facebook Live. You can do that, and Twitch as well. So there's a number of ways for you to get involved. And let's see, Keith, let's go Dead Things. We'll be getting to the Red Wings coming up here.
Things?
That's an ode. Keith must be old enough to remember the 70s. That's what they were called.
They're the Dead Things last year, that's for certain.
Yes. Holmes is a real solid hire. This is from Jelinek, the intern. He comes in right after Keith and says he calls them the SOL Lions. That kind of SOL Lions all in one sentence. The Rams haven't had a first-round pick since Goff. He's been in the room for those decisions. Greg K. on the live chat. I don't like the hire. Here we go again. No experience. Is it another Quinn hire? I'm curious who this head coach will be. I would like a veteran coach. Exactly what Chappie said, SOL, until proven otherwise. Here's another SOSAL. SOSAL. Ishmael on the live chat says, the GM doesn't matter if the sad sack of players quit on the coach. Lions should be ashamed of themselves for not giving their absolute all for Coach Patricia.
Well, yeah, and you know what? That brings up another point. I mean, when you look at Brad Holmes and his experience as a scout in college, you have to wonder, did he have much, if any, impact, and I would assume the answer is no, in hiring Sean McVay, in hiring any of the assistant coaches? So does he know? I mean, he probably knows more of the qualifications for hiring a good coach than you or I do because he's in the game. But is he going to have the requisite experience, along with Chris Spielman, to hire an appropriate head coach who isn't going to do stupid things like alienate all of the best players so that in a year or two he has to ship them out just like Bob Quinn did?
Yeah, Ishmael, I don't think you're going to get many people backing you on the players revolting against Patricia. You mean the guy was a blank hole, so you
Yeah.
get what you deserve there. Yeah, it's a good point. I would love to see. I didn't see. I read a lot of the stories today on Holmes. I'm waiting for the one where Les Snead, the general manager, was there and said, "You know what? We were all thinking that we really liked Sean McVay, but it was actually Brad Holmes who just stood up and said, you know, I put my career on that. This guy is going to be something. An undersized defensive tackle out of Pittsburgh. I also, at number 10, we just have to have him. And you know what? He was the deciding factor in us, going after and getting the great defensive tackle and also getting the young and upcoming coach. Those would be nice stories, hearing about Aaron Donald and Sean McVay, but I haven't seen any of those yet today.
And on the coaching point, considering he didn't even work out of Los Angeles, I would have to assume that he was not part of the interview process when it came to hiring Sean McVay. I would assume that considering they hired him in a January or something, he was probably getting ready for the Senior Bowl as opposed to sitting in on Sean McVay interviews.
You're right. No, but I would imagine on his resume, he's got a few that he can pull up the paper and say, "Oh yeah, look, this is the guy I wanted. They took. He's good. He better have a couple of those." How about an off-topic question from the live chat from Raj, who is called Sideshow Raj. He's asking us a sideshow topic. He says, a ranch or blue cheese? Chat?
Well, let's just put it this way. I hate cheese.
So you're ranch.
Yes, absolutely, 100%.
I love blue cheese, especially if we're talking about hot wings. And actually, blue cheese doesn't have any sugar. And since I'm on a low sugar, low flour, low alcohol diet, blue cheese is the choice. Plus, I would take it anyways. Not a big ranch guy.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not a big ranch guy, but I am anti-cheese, blue, white, orange, gray, or otherwise.
The intern's with you. He likes ranch. Brian.
There you go. Great first name.
Ishmael. Coach Patricia wasn't the best, but he wasn't the worst either. Some of the blame and a lot of the blame is on the team for complaining on quitting on him. Yeah, I'm going to have to disagree with you again on that one, Ishmael. Greg, is Brad Holmes going to trade Stafford or be afraid because he's new? How much room do we have in the cap with no revenue and COVID? If we don't have much money, we should just start over and clean house. I think $11 million is where the Lions sit right now.
Yeah, not much. Now, obviously, they can create more cap space by getting rid of some players, and not just Stafford. They can get rid of some other players as well. They might have to deal with cap hits, but this is you're not going to look at the Detroit Lions in free agency beginning in a month and a half making all sorts of major moves to fill all these big holes. It's going to have to come through the draft because they just don't have the cap space unless they make big trades or cut some really significant pieces to acquire that space. And you know what? That cap space is probably going to shrink between now and then if they do things like franchise Kenny Galladay or re-sign Marvin Jones or re-sign Danny Amendola or some of these other guys out there. I mean, they're paying $19 million a year on a 5-year, $95 million contract to Trey Flowers. He's obviously not worth the money, but are they going to cut him as he enters year 3 of that 5-year deal? They're just in bad shape thanks to Bob Quinn.
Yeah, and Matt Patricia, who was a scheme-specific defense running that amoeba that he put out there. Guys like Jelani Tavai.
And he couldn't even run his terrible scheme correctly.
Yeah, I mean, we could spend all show, which we see that we have here, talking about that. Kenny G's the number one priority. Again, if they trade Stafford, it's $19 million worth of dead money right there, so not going to be able to do much when it comes down to any free agency there. So there might be a long look, and Brad Holmes might be saying, yeah, this is a total rebuild, and we're going to get in line behind the Pistons and Red Wings and Tigers, and here we go.
Ugh.
Music to your ears.
Yeah.
You can't wait for a 1-15 team. All right. Blue cheese. Ishmael likes blue cheese. Patricia was the worst. Patricia's defense drastically improved 2 straight years after Patricia left. I'm sorry, the Patriots D did. Lions defense got worse all 3 years. It can't be any clearer. There you go, Keith. That's the way to put a punctuation mark on that. We've got more. This is from M-A-T. It says Matt, but it's, well, M period Akbar T. Patricia isn't even a head coach material. He'll never get another head coaching job.
Agreed.
Patricia will never get a job running a defense either. Please trade Matthew, the comeback kid Stafford, to San Francisco so we can actually appreciate him and be set up for success. All right, that is the feedback with the Lions and them finding their new general manager in Brad Holmes.
All right, let's turn the page to the second chapter.
Well, that gets us to the new captain for the Detroit Red Wings, 24-year-old Dylan Larkin, who gets the C over on his right shoulder, and he's out there for the Red Wings right now as they are opening up the season. And what do you think of the selection, and what do you think of Larkin? Chap.
Well, this is it's not a surprise because Red Wings fans have been talking about this for years. Basically, they've been talking about this ever since Dylan Larkin made his debut and was an all-star as a rookie. It obviously didn't hurt that he was from Waterford, so he was a local product. For those that are not from the Metro Detroit area, Waterford is a suburb that's about 40 minutes or so away from downtown Detroit. So he grew up a Red Wings fan. But I don't like this move at all. I get that it's a captain giving the job to another captain because Steve Yzerman's nickname was the captain. But if there isn't a Red Wing on the team worthy of being a captain right now, and number two, the Red Wings are so bad that they don't deserve to have a captain. The way I look at this, there's an old saying that goes, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. And the Red Wings are the land of the blind, and Dylan Larkin is the one-eyed man. That, to me, is not a good enough reason to make Larkin a captain. He's a good player who's clearly not great and clearly not elite. There's optimism that he can be great, but I think it's almost a certainty that he's never going to be elite because we've seen players come into the league and after their second or third year, they're putting up 50 goals a game and they're elite. And I don't think that I think there's no doubt that he's never going to be putting up 50 goals a game and he's never going to be elite. Larkin's a one-time All-Star. That was as a rookie. Last 4 years has not been an All-Star. And this is in a league where, similar to baseball, every team gets at least one All-Star, even if it's a token All-Star and nobody deserves it. And despite that, the last 4 years, the NHL has decided that they're going to put somebody else in the All-Star game as opposed to the quote-unquote new captain, Dylan Larkin. So a guy who's been an All-Star 20% of the time in his career and 0 times in the last 4 years for a team that always gets at least a token All-Star, not a great goal scorer, had 30 goals once in his career. That was 2 years ago. Last year was not even close to being on pace for 30 with 19 in 71 games. He's not a point-per-game scorer. And then the team, dead last by a mile in terms of goals allowed last year, dead last by an even bigger margin in goals scored last year. Every team in the NHL scored at least 33 more goals than the Red Wings. The Wings haven't had a captain in years. Why the rush to make Dylan Larkin a captain right now? He just didn't deserve it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't think it's been a rush. You know, they haven't had a captain since Zetterberg. It's been a couple years, and it might have been a rush if they would have done it 2 years ago. I would have understood if they would have done it 2 years ago. It's like, yeah, I understand that the C and Detroit, it's like the biggest honor and responsibility because of Yzerman and Howe and Delvecchio and all down the line of so many great captains that they've had. But, you know, they haven't had one in a couple years. And, you know, no, is he the greatest player in the league? But you know what? He does. There's only one thing that you can say about him that you'd go through, or at least that during his career here, is when he begged out of the All-Star game. You know, that wasn't very captain-like, or that wasn't a very good thing. But, you know, 2 years ago he had a 30-plus goals. I think this could be a little nudge here as well, man. Like, it's not like he couldn't score 40 goals, be it definitely a 30-plus goal scorer. Not every, you know, captain in the league, you know, has to be a 50-goal scorer. You know, it's about responsibility and being able to lead your team And you could be, he's not the best player on the league, or even on the team. That's Mantha. But you know what? He looks the part, he sounds the part, and this could, to me, give him a boost. And there's no reason, hopefully this team is starting to ascend. 2 years ago, I thought that they were in the same boat. I didn't think last year they were going to be dead last. But, at some point they got to start the trajectory up, and having somebody along the way that can, be that voice for them. I think Larkin's a good choice for that.
I'm not looking for Steve Yzerman to give a boost to a good player and say, maybe if I put this letter on his jersey and give him the responsibilities of being a captain, then all of a sudden he'll become this star player and he'll start to lead. Like the Red Wings obviously need a heck of a lot more talent on the team, and that's not Dylan Larkin's fault. And in terms of the skill set, in terms of how he produces, he's good for a Red Wing. But I think on a playoff team, he would not be a first liner right now. And on a Stanley Cup team, he wouldn't be a first or second liner right now. So why just because you haven't had one in a while, do you have to name one right now? And why does it have to be Dylan Larkin? If you're the worst team in the league and you've got a guy who's dragging the rest of the guys along because he's putting up 45 goals a game and he's been to 3 All-Star games in 5 years, all right, I get it. That makes sense. But even when every team gets one, you're getting passed up by some old washed-up veterans as the token all-star on the team. I'm just not feeling it. I get that a lot of people that are bigger Red Wings fans than me are fans of this move, and I think it's because they trust Steve Yzerman no matter what he does, and they're looking for something to grab onto, and I get that. But Larkin, to me, he's a good player that does not deserve that honor. Just keep the A on his chest.
Well, he's certainly a top 6 forward. To your point, though, I was watching the pregame tonight, and it was all about, man, they just had the sweater. They were showing him stitching it, and they were showing all the past captains. I mean, that's the thing. I don't know how much that they're going to be able to play that card, throughout the year. Paul on the live chat says, hey, give Facebook some love. Paul on Facebook is saying, talking some college hockey here, and then he says, but what's your take on the new Jags head coach Urban Meyer? He'll have 11 picks and has all that cap space. We talked about him briefly in the open there. It's a great situation. Lawrence, all the cap space in the world. I mean, that's why he's going there. Sunshine State. I mean, crappy uniforms, and the owner's been kind of a jerk the last couple of years to play for, but maybe he's turned the corner there. But a great situation, and I think that he could be the college coach that actually could have some success there, Paul.
Yeah, I would assume that he's going to bring in some of his former Buckeye assistants like Tom Herman, who was recently fired from Texas. He might become the new offensive coordinator for the Jacksonville Jaguars. There have been a lot of reports that over the last couple of days, one of the reasons why it took so long for Meyer to finally sign on the dotted line is that he was assembling his coaching staff. So now that he's got the job, these coaches that he knows don't have to worry about if he's getting the job. It's about if they want to become one of his assistants once again or for the first time in Jacksonville. But we all hope that he loses.
M.A.T. on the chat says he's enjoying the podcast. All right. First shout out for the podcast. Like to see that. Brian says the bar has been set really low for the Wings captaincy. Larkin is a good player, but he has an A captain ceiling on any other team. He has the A, not the captaincy. I think that he's agreeing with you, chap, when it comes down to the C.
Yeah, it just seemed like it was a rush to do so. And I know that you made the point that it's been a while, but when you're the worst team in the league, wait a while longer to give somebody that honor. This is not like football where you got 2 or 3 captains on every single team. In the NHL, you don't have to have a captain. So why give somebody a C on the worst team, not just in the NHL, but in all of sports? Sports.
A pretty good player, and it could get him a boost there. So one more before we get to the third chapter, and it's about Urban Meyer again, who's hijacking the second chapter. Raj says he should give Haskins another opportunity. He had great success with him at Ohio State. I think if the price is right, he probably will.
Um, I mean, maybe as a backup quarterback to Trevor Lawrence, but obviously, if Dwayne Haskins is starting for the Jacksonville Jaguars next year, then something went wrong. I think that's clear. All right, let's.
Yeah, Gardner Minshew doesn't seem like he would be a bad bridge quarterback, and so
Well,
yeah.
if you're drafting Trevor Lawrence and he's supposed to be the best quarterback prospect in years, you better not be looking at a bridge. You better be handing the ball to Trevor Lawrence as your number one quarterback from the first mini camp snap.
Maybe. All right, let's get to that next chapter.
Yeah, let's turn the page to the third chapter. And actually, no, before we turn the page to the third chapter, I wanted to put this up for everybody because I did put up a poll asking what people thought about the decision to make Dylan Larkin the captain of the Red Wings. And I put all the information up there. Dead last in goals allowed by a landslide. Dead last in goals scored by a bigger landslide. One-time All-Star. 83.3% said that Dylan Larkin is worthy. 0% said that nobody or that somebody else is worthy, and 16.7% agree with me that nobody is currently worthy of that captaincy seat for the Red Wings.
You lost another poll, chap.
Yeah, well, that's why I put it out there. People don't have to agree with me, and they clearly didn't there. Now let's turn the page to the third chapter where we get to cheating in baseball. How many more of these stories do we have to do? It doesn't involve steroids, so that's a good thing. It doesn't involve banging on a trash can, and it doesn't involve a hidden buzzer. Zzz, zzz. It does involve multiple former Detroit Tigers, including Justin Verlander. Brian Harkins, great first name, including the spelling, was the visiting clubhouse manager for the Anaheim Angels from 1990 through March 3rd of 2020, and he was fired shortly after Major League Baseball sent out a memo last year reminding teams that doctoring baseballs was against the rules. You can't have pine tar or some other foreign substance on there. And now Harkins is suing the Angels and Major League Baseball. Pitchers are only allowed to use that rosin bag that they have right behind the mound in order to get a better grip. They cannot use pine tar. In court documents, Harkins admitted to making an illegal concoction of pine tar, rosin, and Moda Stick, which is a harder pine tar, according to the Detroit News. And Harkins apparently learned this recipe from former Angels pitcher and former Tigers pitcher Troy Percival. In court documents, Harkins claimed that he gave the mixture to several Angels pitchers and opposing pitchers over the years, including Justin Verlander, Max Scherzer. The list also includes some lesser-known Tigers pitchers like Edwin Jackson and Jabba Chamberlain, and some other star pitchers like Garrett Cole, Corey Kluber, Felix Hernandez, and more. Dennis, what do you think about this story regarding Verlander and others using this banned sticky substance to cheat and get a better grip on the ball?
Yeah, well, not much. I mean, it's been going on ever since I've been watching baseball and since, the last 100 years. However, it is illegal, and really it focuses in on Verlander. His crime, he's a hypocrite, is what it comes down to, and it does get into buzzers and steroids. I don't know, chap. Do you know the old joke about, hey, I don't smoke, I don't drink, I don't lie? And it's like, damn it, I left my cigarettes at the bar. I mean, that's Verlander here. That's Verlander here. Here's Justin Verlander. Really outspoken about cheating when it comes to performance-enhancing drugs and steroids. Terrible for the integrity of the game and overall for the fabric of baseball. Those cheaters are terrible, and he's totally against them. Buzzers and banging trash cans, which happened while he was pitching for Houston. Hey, that was okay. He didn't say a word about it because it benefited him, and he ended up getting a World Series ring. Mm-hmm. And now that he's supposedly using the substance here, that's okay as well because it benefits him. So if it benefits Verlander and his teammates, that's okay. If it's against Verlander, that it's bad for the fabric of the game. Get out of here with that. And the one thing it might do, and I've come to the point where I was going to slow play guys like Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens if I had a vote, 10, 20 years ago when those guys became eligible. But at some point, I was ready to go ahead and put them into the Hall of Fame, and I would. But I think those writers, if they get a chance, I think that they'll slow play Verlander. So, him being outspoken but now being this hypocrite, I think the effect will be that he could potentially be slow played entrance into Cooperstown.
Well, I think it's interesting that you bring up that when it benefits him, he's okay with it because it appears that he doesn't use performance-enhancing drugs, but obviously he was using that sticky stuff that that the former Angels visiting clubhouse manager created for him. Yeah, the story is fairly big, but it's certainly not huge like the banging trash can situation or what was Barry Bonds rubbing on his lips or whatever with the cream in the clear. This seems like 50 times more of an open secret than allowing PEDs back in the 90s and early 2000s. I mean, you got pitchers that would, I got a prop for you guys. I got my baseball hat. When you got pitchers that are standing on the mound and they got a big brown stain on their caps and they're rubbing their cap like this before every single pitch, it's not because between innings they ran out of toilet paper. It's because there's pine tar or something else on their hat and they're cheating every single time. They get the pitch back from the catcher and then they put the ball in the glove and they go like this. And then maybe they wipe their jersey, but they go like this. They rub the ball up with that greasy or that sticky substance, and then they get ready to pitch again. I mean, you see rosin bags on the back of the mound, but every single pitch, rub, and there's a big brown stain, sometimes on the top of the bill, but almost always under the bill, and nobody ever complains about it. So everybody knows it is going on. Everybody's okay. It's not a secret. It's right in plain sight. There was that one Yankees pitcher who had a big pine tar smudge on his neck. I think it was in the playoffs, and they took him out of the game. And obviously Kenny Rogers had that big brown stain on the palm of his hand in the 2006 playoffs with the Tigers, and they said, oh, that's too egregious. But if you're, on a scale of 0 to 10 in terms of being discreet, if you're at least a 3 and you just put the big brown stain on your hat, you're okay with it. So, this is not going to be something that I think is going to completely damage Justin Verlander's career because, like, when you talk about everybody doing it, just about everybody is sticking pine tar or something illegal on their hands, and they don't do anything about it. And I'll tell you this, Rob Manfred, he is a terrible commissioner, as you know. I believe with all my heart he doesn't even like baseball, and if he's got all these dumb rules or dumb ways that he wants to go about trying to make baseball better in terms of sticking a stupid man on second base. Should we put a ghost runner out there? I don't know. Should we get rid of the shift? How about this in terms of improving offensive numbers? Enforce the rule about not having sticky stuff on your hand. Enforce the rule about not having pine tar up there because you know what it does? It increases the grip on the baseball. It increases the spin rate. It allows there to be more movement on pitches, and that makes it more difficult to hit. How about just enforce that rule so pitchers aren't going like this and getting, 2, 3, 4, 5% more spin on their pitches or more movement on their pitches every single time? How about do that, Rob?
Yeah, hey, well, if we're just all for it, maybe next year we'll see, or if Verlander comes back, he'll have a nail file or some sandpaper in his back pocket. He can start, doctoring up the baseball. Maybe we'll see him between innings with a drill or something over there. And, we'll just go from there. Look at it, all those things that you say are true, and they should enforce the rules. If it's illegal, let's do it. If it's part of the game, then that they're overlooking, that's fine too. But if we're keeping score, I'm going to keep score right here in the hypocrisy category. That's 2 strikes against Verlander. Banging trash cans and Altuve's buzzer to benefit him to win the World Series. Mm-hmm. Strike 1. This time around, cheating, using foreign substances and everything. When he's so adamant against cheating and performance-enhancing drugs and so outspoken, hey, there's strike 2 against Verlander. Don't be surprised if you get slow played and Kate's going to be sitting there wondering, hey, why can't he get into the Hall of Fame? That's going to be why.
I wouldn't even call this strike 2 because there was only one team that was banging on trash cans, and that was his Houston Astros. If there's, 200 pitchers in Major League Baseball, like 190 of them were rubbing a brown stain before every single pitch and then rubbing it onto the ball so they can get more spin on it. Everybody was doing it.
No, I think the only brown stain is in your drawers right now after you just got completely owned in this segment.
This is like if, robbing a bank is illegal, but you walk into the bank with a big brown bag that has a dollar sign in it, and the teller says, "Oh, hey, Brian, here's our money. We're just going to give it to you." And then you walk out with that big cartoon-like brown bag over your back, and the police officer just nods and lets you go because the police officer doesn't care that you're robbing the bank. Everybody's doing it.
Okay, well, everybody's doing it. I feel like, Verlander's like the old preacher on Sunday that stands up there and tells everybody adultery is against the law and commandments, and you're going to go to hell. Before he meets his wife for lunch. I mean, come on. That's what Verlander's doing here. Let's go to the feedback and see what's shaking there.
Yeah.
And let's see. Jelinek says, I think the love for Verlander is fading in Detroit. Yeah, it's nice. I can't wait to see somebody. Maybe they'll make the point. I'll wait on it. Keith says, they all cheat. Kenny Rogers in the playoffs. Joe Niekro was caught with a nail file in his back pocket. The umps made him empty his pockets, and he tried to throw it away. I remember that. That's a classic. Here's from K Salty. He says, yo, I know we're on baseball, but check this out. Stafford to the Saints for their low first rounder. I think he's in the best situation for both parties because I don't see too many teams giving up a first. Yeah, I think they need more than a first. They need a first and a second. So we'll see on that. I'm holding the line.
I would take just
Salty.
a first.
I know you would, and a late first. You'll take a third rounder just to get him out of town. I want a first and a second, and I think Brad Holmes will hold the line. It's the first time I ever said that. Let's, as Paul indicates, make sure we're looking at Facebook for any feedback. Indeed. And this one says, Fithian, of course, is correct. I just made that up. Nobody said that.
Of course not.
Very Lions to hire a guy that's going to learn on the job. That won't end well. And so there you go. Oh, wait. We got one more here. DJ Major. They're going to regret not hiring Louis Riddick. Of course, those are from previous chapters. But I thought DJ, who I know is a big baseball fan, would say something about the Yankees and cheating there, especially since you threw the Pinstripers under the bus.
Jabba Chamberlain, former Tiger and Yankee, was on that list. But I wonder if we will stop hearing Louis Riddick kiss Matt Stafford's ass on social media and on ESPN now that he didn't get the job, because he was all about, oh, Stafford's a great quarterback. You hear that, Sheila Ford? I love Matthew Stafford. You hear that, Chris Spielman? Oh, I love Stafford. He's the best quarterback of all time. Rod Wood, you hear that? Now he doesn't have the job. What's he going to say about the Lions and Matt Stafford now that he's staying with ESPN, or at least not going to the same old Lions?
Yeah, if you blank Dan Orlovsky's account out anytime he said something about Matt Stafford, his would look like Donald Trump's. Let's continue on here and move it along from baseball to basketball.
Yeah, let's go to the fourth chapter then.
That gets us to the big trade. James Harden forced it. I don't know if he did it from a strip club or what, but the beard is taking. He's taking his beard, as I'm spitting all over myself, to Brooklyn. What do you think?
Well, look, this is a situation where you say, forget the Lakers, forget the Warriors, forget the Clippers, and I don't know that there's any other teams up there with those three, but the Brooklyn Nets are now the most polarizing team in the NBA. I don't think that you can look at the Brooklyn Nets and have a middle ground when it comes to them. I think you either have to love them, which is understandable because they have all of this talent with their big three of Harden, Durant, and Irving, or you can hate them because they orchestrated this and they appear to be whiny and selfish. I can see a lot of fans tonight saying, I'm not going to watch the Red Wings game where I'm not going to watch the NBA on TNT. I'm firing up NBA 2K on my PS5 or PS4 on my Xbox and seeing how many points I can score with Durant and Harden and Irving, because in 2K, Kyrie Irving doesn't take games off so that he can have personal reasons to go party. And James Harden doesn't take games off so that he can go party with a mumble rapper and auto-tune. I can see a lot of people putting a lot of money on the Nets to win the title because big threes are recipes for winning championships. I can see people buying jerseys from the NBA store, getting the Harden jerseys. I can see huge ratings for Brooklyn Nets games on ESPN, TNT, ABC, NBA TV. But I'm not in that group. I'm going to be in the other part of the polarization of the Nets, where I think they are the easiest team to hate, at least for me in the NBA. I've been pretty vocal about my displeasure for Kyrie Irving. And while the Lakers used to be the team that I would root against because LeBron is a great individual when it comes to giving back to the community. He seems like a nice person. He's my sports villain because of what he did to the Pistons. If it's Nets versus Lakers in the finals, I'm all purple and gold. I hate the way they constructed the roster. Irving and Durant went behind closed doors and said, let's team up in Brooklyn. And all the GM had to do was clear out some cap space. I hate the way Irving initially viewed the hiring of Steve Nash as, oh, he's not really a head coach. He's going to have to answer to us. I hate that Irving is always hurt. I hate that Irving is so selfish that he demanded a trade from Cleveland so he wouldn't have to be in LeBron's shadow. I love that the Celtics were better when Irving was hurt than when he was healthy. I hate that Irving didn't want to play with LeBron, but he does want to play with Durant and Harden. I hate that Irving didn't speak to the press at the start of the season, and I love the way he flipped after he got fined for saying he wouldn't speak to them. I hate that he's skipping the last 4 or 5 games for personal reasons so he could party, despite the fact that he's getting paid over $33 million a year to play for the Nets. I hate that Durant doesn't like speaking to the media. I hate that Harden was basically telling the Rockets, do this, do that, do this with the roster for years, and then he decides he wants out. I hate that he ran Chris Paul out of town. He ran Westbrook out of town. I hate that he was such a terrible teammate this year that DeMarcus Cousins and Eric Gordon have gone on the record saying they were relieved that he was traded away. I hate that Harden was showing up late to training camp so he could party. I hate that he was apparently showing up late to meetings all of last year with no consequences. And I hate that they all teamed up in this big market of New York City because these stars always team up in tourist destinations, not in places like Detroit or Memphis. I hope it doesn't work out. I hope it's a train wreck. I can't wait to see what happens in the last shot and Kyrie Irving is pissed off because James Harden wouldn't pass on the ball. I hope it doesn't work. They are my least favorite team in the NBA.
Yeah, chemistry is going to be a huge issue. That's the understatement of the year. They all bring a ton of baggage here to the situation, but you know what? I know about all the distractions, and who knows about Kyrie if he's ever going to play and orchestrate and everything. But you know, I know you know this. I like Kyrie Irving. You know, I love watching him play. Best shot maker, handle, and all of that I've ever seen. I like Harden, the footwork, the step backs, the Euro steps, and all of that. Mm-hmm. I love watching him. Now I know that he played a few games where it looked like he had it, but you know he looked like he was out of shape and about 40 pounds overweight. But you know we'll end up seeing if that's going to cost him over the long haul. And Durant looks like he's come back, you know, from his Achilles and everything else. But I like the interest of the mix. You know, I don't think they're going to win the finals, but I think that they could beat the Bucks, the Sixers, or the Celtics. I think they'll be right there to make it really entertaining, just to see like all of these personalities. Yeah, I think, and each of those guys individually, I really enjoy their games. I'm really fascinated to see how it ends up working. They're going to have to trade for some big man, use some exceptions, get that Dinwiddie plea for they might be able to get some money because he's out for the year. They're going to have to because they really, you know, with getting rid of the big man, sending him to Cleveland,
Jared Allen.
Yeah, they're going to need some size up front, certainly some defense there. I was shocked when I looked at just the total haul that the Rockets. I don't know if you have the complete package there. So they got 3 first rounders from Brooklyn. what, 22, 24, and 26. I mean, by the time 24 gets, like, this thing, like, they could be in the lottery. They're all unprotected. They get a Cavs unprotected pick from next year. That could be a lottery pick. I like all of that. I know the Rockets had to give up a bunch, to make all the deals that they made to get Paul and Westbrook, or however it ever worked. They gave up, tons of picks. They also got 4 pick swaps in the deal as well. So 4 first rounders and 4 pick swaps, and they ended up getting Oladipo when they flipped Karis LeVert. Man, they did a pretty good job in all of that to be able to replenish it. And they don't actually have that bad of a roster.
Yeah, and it's for a guy who didn't want to be there anyway and was causing more problems than he was solving at the start of this year. So I like how things worked out for the Houston Rockets. I mean, one other team that was in the mix was the Cleveland Cavaliers, because Jared Allen, as a part of what became a 4-team deal, went to the Cavaliers, and now people are talking about, look at all the centers they have, because they got Jared Allen, they obviously have Andre Drummond, I think they have some other young guy, and there was a tweet that Andre Drummond actually retweeted with like the crying while laughing emoji about the potential starting roster of the Cavs in 2023 could have Drummond playing shooting guard or something like that. I mean, the Cavs might like centers as much as the Pistons like centers with Plumlee and Jahlil Okafor and Isaiah Stewart. But the
Cavs got Sexland in the backcourt, so they've got Garland and Colin Sexton, so they're doing pretty good. So they're looking to do a little something.
Yeah, this is mostly though about, not the nice haul of draft picks that the Rockets are getting in the swaps. It's about the Nets, and I hope they fail. I hope that there's all sorts of chemistry issues. I hope that Durant and Harden get into an argument with Kyrie Irving, because Kyrie Irving is the poorest of the 3, only making $33 million this year. I hope that they continue to skip games and do all sorts of other stupid stuff.
Yeah, so you're against it. I'm getting that vibe.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
There was a lot of things that you didn't like there. All right, let's get to some of the feedback before we look at the divisional playoffs and the major wager coming up in the next chapter. We do have some feedback coming in here. Once Kyrie is traded for a top 5 defender, you'll love the Nets because James is committed when he wants to play. That's from K Salty.
I wonder if the Nets are interested in trading away Kyrie Irving right now, because they can't be happy that he's skipping all this time. Now, maybe one of the reasons they acquired Harden is because there were rumors a couple of months ago about how KD and Kyrie wanted Harden to be traded there, and they thought this would be a way to get Kyrie to focus. But I can't imagine that paying him $33 million a year, they're okay with him taking personal time to go party. Maybe they are looking to trade him for a big man or something else and have some other like. If I'm an NBA general manager right now, I'll tell you this: I don't want Kyrie Irving. Since he made that shot in Cleveland to win the championship, he's hurt teams. He hurt the Celtics. He's not helping the Brooklyn Nets right now by not playing. I wouldn't want him. And I would want to trade him away if I was a Net.
He was all right for a minute with the Celtics until he ended up getting hurt. And it doesn't sound like they're investigating that birthday party that he went to. And if there are more than 10 people at that party, he's going to get suspended for 10 games. So he's not coming back anytime soon. So they'll be able to ease Harden in anyway. So we'll see how that goes. Mm-hmm. Roz says overweight Harden needs to be a better leader and professional. He cried his way out of Houston, and now the spotlight's on him to get it done.
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure on him.
Keith, Harden is a ball hog and plays no D. That's true. That's true. And I mean no D. He should take out the D out of his last name and call him forever James Harden. And Kylie's on a sabbatical and may not come back. Jelinek says the Nets have an Eastern Conference final ceiling, but he loves to watch Harden play due to so much fun to watch. K Salty says Harden has been playing D this last year, even though it's low tier. Still give him some credit, but it's never be worried about James. He'll have no problem. Kyrie up in the air. I don't know. Maybe I didn't read that last part right.
Well,
Keith says, go ahead.
Just going back to what our intern Brian Jelinek said, I don't think that their ceiling is make the Eastern Conference Finals. There's a lot of question marks with this team. They have a big 3, which is the the ultimate for what you want in terms of being a championship, not contender, but a winner. So I think that right now, having not seen them play yet, it makes sense to say that their ceiling is a championship. Whether they get to the finals, whether they get to the Eastern Conference Finals, because they could turn into an absolute train wreck where everybody wants out in a month, we don't know. But I think that their ceiling should be to win it all because of their big three.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. You know, when I was young, people used to call people, and I haven't heard it anymore, but I think it's appropriate for both Harden and Kyrie Irving. People used to say, hey, you're a space cadet. I don't even know what that is, but and those guys are kind of space cadets. It feels like what Raj says here, it's going to be a boom or bust. Formula is either going to work or it's going to fail miserably. And then one more, Keith says, Kyrie is a strange dude and has issues on every team, and he truly thinks the world is flat. Something's not right. Player strange.
Such a stupid thing to say for a guy who got into Duke.
Kenneth Johnson says, Kyrie, I heard, is in Oregon looking for Bigfoot. All right. That's enough. We're moving on.
Yeah, let's turn the page now to the 5th chapter, and that takes us to the major wager. And before we get into the major wager, looking at what we have on tap for this weekend in the divisional round games, remind us of what you picked on Tuesday.
Well, I picked the Rams and the Bills on Tuesday. But you know what? I'm rooting for – this is always weird. Like when you pick some things, like sometimes you just pick what you want to root for, but that's not the case here. I am picking the Rams and the Bills. I'm certainly not rooting for the Packers. So I am going to root for the Ravens and the Rams, and I'm going to root for the Browns and the Bucks. However, when it comes down to betting this and looking at all of the numbers, like I said, I am going to take the Rams and the Bills, and then I'll look to Sunday. You know, the Chiefs are -10. That's such a big number. I am going to be rooting for the Browns, like I said. But, you know, if I had to bet this one or advise you on what to do, I would take the Chiefs. I mean, that offense is so potent. You know, I've done it all year long. It hasn't been great, but I'm just going to put my foot on the gas and go with the Chiefs -10. I'm also going to take the Saints -3. Like they really blew the Bucs out twice this year. I know one was the first game. Brady was just getting acclimated, and you know Antonio Brown's really coming on. I think that's going to be a great game, but I'm going to take the Saints and I'm going to lay the points. I think Ravens and Bills and Saints and Bucks. I think those could be fabulous games. I love this weekend. After last weekend having the 6 games, 3 in each day, now just having 2. I like how it's working. You know, next week, you know, we're just going to have the championships games, and we'll be down to the Super Bowl. It's working out nice. Can't wait.
Yeah, Tuesday I picked the Nuggets +1 against the Nets, and of course it was another bad pick. The Nets won by 6. For tonight, I'll just say this. I like the Warriors on the money line +165 against the Nuggets in Denver. As far as these games this weekend, for the Packers are a 6.5-point favorite. You're looking at the best scoring offense in the NFL with the Packers and the best scoring defense in the NFL with the Rams. So I think that will make it intriguing. But I think that when you see the Rams scoring 30 points last week with only 16 first downs, 333 total yards of offense against the Seahawks, that's not going to happen in Green Bay, especially because Rodgers hardly ever turns the ball over in home games, and the Seahawks turn the ball over twice. I've got the Packers winning and covering 28-13. You look at the second game on Saturday, I think this could be a good game as well. The fact that this is only a 2.5-point spread as opposed to 3.5, because 3 is a very important number in sports betting for football, makes me feel very comfortable picking the Bills. I like the home team. I like the offense. Bills, second highest scoring team in the NFL, and they have a better defense than the Titans. Bills were also 7-1 at home this year. I've got the Bills winning 30-24. You said that you like the Chiefs to cover, and the Chiefs are still my pick to get to the Super Bowl, so I've got them winning this game. But I've got the Browns to cover. 10 points is a lot. And I get that the Browns are coming off of a win against a sloppy Steelers team that was really sloppy down the stretch. But look at the Chiefs down the stretch. They weren't blowing everybody out despite that great offense. They, you know, if you exclude the last game of the year where they lost to the Chargers when they didn't need to win and they did lose the game, The Chiefs had 7 consecutive one-possession wins. They have the ability to blow out teams, but they just weren't. And now in the playoffs, I'm going to assume that they're going to blow out the Browns. They are the Browns, and they did have a week off, but I'm going to say another one-possession victory. Chiefs 34, Browns 28, moral victory for Cleveland. And then in the final game, Saints are 3-point favorites against the Buccaneers. People often say that it's hard to beat the same time 3 teams in a row. Well, 3 times in a row. Look at the Bucs and the Pistons. The Bucs and the Pistons have played 3 times in a row this year, and the Pistons lost by 9 points yesterday when they could have easily lost by 20 points because those games were just not competitive. I think the Saints are going to win again. This one will probably be the closest, or could be the closest of the 3, but I've got the Saints winning and covering 27-21.
Yeah, well, I feel good about better about my Chiefs and Rams pick that you are totally against them. You know, the one thing about the 3, it's really applies to football. It's not across sports, but I did look the number up. It's overblown. Super Bowl era teams that won the first 2 meetings are 14-8 outright in the 3rd meeting. And they are just 10, 11, and 1 against the spread. So if you 10, 11, and 1, but 14 and 8, there you go. So it's not necessarily that tough.
Well, the 2 games were also blowouts in favor, or at least double-digit victories in favor of the Saints as well.
Well, the last one was 38-3. That's a blowout.
Yeah.
That's a Lions score.
Yes, it was.
All right, speaking of the Lions on Tuesday, maybe we'll know who the head coach is going to be. Hopefully, it's not Darryl Bevell. I might take my microphone and throw it through the screen. That's going to do it. Thanks for watching. Rate, subscribe, do all those things. Thanks to Brian Jelinek, who was you saw in the live chat. He was over on Facebook as well. Appreciate his work. And for Brian Chapman, I'm Dennis Fithy, and thanks for watching. We will talk with you on Tuesday. Have a great weekend.
He represents the mitten by way of Penn State. When Chapman gets to talking sports, the people can't wait. He represents the mitten. Be a true EMU, but cut Dennis in the fall, and his veins bleeding blue. They got respect around the state. When that light turns red, so don't sleep on these dudes. Just invite your friends to cut your nap short and tip your cap for and sit back for the Fifth chapter. Brian Chapman. Dennis Fithy, when they open their mouths, they spitting the facts, bro. This ain't even optional, man. You just have to tune into YouTube to watch the broadcast, or download it to your phone to peep the podcast. They mix laughter, they get after. It's all captured in the Fifth chapter.